Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And man, I got to get into this video about something that took place about a week ago on Gilbert Arenas' YouTube channel and podcast, where two ex-NBA players, millionaires, at least one of the guys, a multimillionaire, got into a heated discussion that it was definitely a verbal altercation that almost led to a fist fight. And who am I talking about? Kenyon Martin and Nick Young. And let's get into the personality traits of both of them. Well, Kenyon Martin came from the University of Cincinnati. I started following him in college. He was in the same conference with St. Louis University back in the 90s. And they had kind of a tough team, a little bit rogue and thuggish to a certain extent. Kenyon Martin's been displaying this thuggish kind of mantra since college. I went and watched them play against St. Louis University when Larry Hughes, who's a local young man from St. Louis who went to 1 year of college at SLU and then entered the NBA draft in 1998. It was the 8th pick for the Philadelphia 76ers. Kenyon was a junior, and the next year, his senior year, Cincinnati did well again, and under Bob Higgins, I think. And he ended up being the #1 overall pick in the NBA in 1999. But here again, there's always been some attitude issues with Kenyon Martin. There's been NBA fights during his tenure. He couldn't stand the coach out of Denver that was coaching him at the time. He got drafted by the New Jersey Nets, and then he got traded to Denver. And he did not like George Karl at all. He said he wanted to fight him if he had an opportunity. He wanted to choke him. He wanted to fight him. Here again, displaying physical aggression towards even his head coach. There was an incident where J.R. Smith did a practical joke on him and put popcorn all throughout the interior of his Rolls Royce. Kenyon Martin wanted to fight him. He didn't find that funny. And Kenyon Martin has always had this attitude, this thuggish demeanor about himself, which I think leads to, here again, single mother raising him, fatherless homes. Was he a kid that was always said yes to? Was he spoiled? Many of these NBA and professional athletes have never heard the word no. They've always heard the word yes, and they think that the world belongs to them. Nick Young went to USC, was a high draft pick, played a number of years, not as long as Kenyon. I think Nick got at least 10 years in. His claim to fame was he dated Iggy Azalea, who is the Australian-born female rapper, and then they broke up some years back. And Nick is kind of a jokester. And so giving you this backstory on these two guys' personality, Nick Young is always smiling, always laughing and joking. You can even see on Gil'S podcast and YouTube channel, Nick kind of acts like he has a little bit of ADHD, and he's always on his phone and doing other things, doing their commentary. And I did not think from day one that Kenyon Martin and Nick Young were going to be a fit. You have Kenyon Martin, who's overly sensitive, aggressive, verbally, which could lead to a physical altercation. He always claims he's ready to get down, ready to be down and get down. And Nick Young is just the opposite. He wants to laugh and play all the time. So you got these two dichotomies going on here. One super serious, one is never serious. And Gilbert Arenas is kind of in the middle. But it makes for fodder for people to watch it. But tempers flared. Kenyon was talking about Greg Popovich, with the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, who just retired, saying he wanted to play for him, and those kinds. He had some really great things to say about Greg Popovich, Coach Pop, and evidently doing his commentary about Pop. Nick Young was on his phone and he was whispering to Gil, and it got Kenyon Martin extremely heated. I mean, to the point where he was calling them a bitch ass N-word, and he would F them up. And he kept telling them to shut the F up. And that's a pretty strong phrase to tell another grown man, let alone a millionaire, to shut the F up while he's talking. And this was not fake. This was real. Anybody that's been following Kenyon Martin over the years, he wears his emotions on his shoulder. And what do we get out of that? I think it was a poor display of two ex-professionals, NBA players. Both of them have made millions of dollars. We know these salaries are out of whack today. I'm glad these young men are making that kind of money. What it goes to show you is how much these owners have been making over the years. So spreading the wealth to these players is a good thing, even though I think from a moral and ethical standpoint, as far as society's framework, paying someone $60 million to bounce a basketball versus the salaries of a neurosurgeon, a heart surgeon, our teachers, our police officers, nurses, what they're making is abysmal in comparison. However, the value that they bring to society, these firefighters, these police officers, these teachers, without teachers, you wouldn't have doctors and lawyers and police chiefs and police officers. It starts with the parents and these are teachers. So the disvalue of what hardworking people do each and every day is tearing up our framework as a society to have a healthy structure. The salaries are abysmal. But Kenyon gets into it with Nick, gets to a heated conversation. It's embarrassing. I think Kenyon was feeding into the stereotype of black athletes being spoiled, having this thug rap mantra behind them, and Kenyon Martin fell right into that web. Nick Young doesn't take anything very seriously. I think that's an issue too in and of itself, even with his breakup with Iggy Azalea. Nick is kind of like a jokester all the time. I mean, he's an over jokester, and Kenyon Martin is too serious. But for what they displayed, if you go back and look at Gil'S, Gilbert Arenas' YouTube channel on that day that took place, that was a real deal. And they almost came to blows. And I don't think that Kenyon Martin is going to let that go. I think that Kenyon might be removed, or he might even tell Gil that he doesn't want to come back. Kenyon Martin seems like a person that will hold on to that forever. And eventually, if he does come back and Nick Young continues to display himself as a carefree, joking guy, I think Kenyon Martin would possibly try to get into a physical altercation with Nick. And so Gilbert Arenas is going to have to make some serious decisions, some executive decisions about letting probably Kenyon Martin go. Gil has a pretty good relationship with Nick Young. They go all the way back to California and have been knowing each other for a very long time. It seems like he's closer to Nick Young than he is to Kenyon. But that was a sad situation and very unprofessional. These guys have made all of this money. They have all the free time in the world. And Kenyon Martin wants to jeopardize it by getting into it with a verbal altercation with one of his colleagues. I mean, that's like two doctors yelling and screaming and coming to blows with each other at the hospital, or two lawyers in a courtroom doing their thing. And one lawyer wants to reach over to another one and to the other lawyer and choke him to death. What is this world coming to? Can we agree to disagree? Can we still maintain some professionalism? But I think what happened with Kenyon has become kind of a subcultural norm in this hip hop black culture where we don't think and we react to everything emotionally in a negative way. And what can we learn from it? This thing is the most powerful tool to have a cerebral understanding and consciousness about the decisions that you make and how it will affect other people is very important. And what it also showed with Kenyon is even though he's made well over $100 million, his intellectual maturity did not rise up to the same level as his income. Some people get stuck and stagnant right at 16 or 17. The way he reacted to Nick Young reminded me of a spoiled teenager. I think Nick Young also should take life a little more seriously. He probably shouldn't have been on his phone and whispering to Gil while Kenyon was speaking. That is a little distracting when you're trying to make a serious comment about somebody or something. And so, but I don't think Kenyon's reaction should have been what it was. Or he should have had a conversation with Nick once the cameras were off. And Nick, and Gil could have sat down and Kenyon should have said, hey, man, when each one of us is talking, don't interrupt, try to pay attention and stay engaged. And let's get this, keep this YouTube channel in a healthy space as opposed to them two getting into it. What an embarrassment it would have been if they actually would have got into a fight. Here again, I give the example. Would you see Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates having a disagreement and then coming to blows about it? It just doesn't happen. Why many of our black athletes and entertainers seem like they act so much different than non-black entertainers and athletes, or preferably white athletes? Do you think you see two white NBA players on a podcast and they have a disagreement and they come to blows about it? I don't think so. So there are some cultural norms that shouldn't be norms, or some cultural abnorms that are taking place with many of our young black professionals in the entertainment and the sports world space. Kenyon's not the only one that's like that. A lot of these guys are spoiled and take themselves way too seriously. There's a lot like Nick Young, who doesn't take himself seriously at all. And so it's a cautionary tale for young folks to pay attention to. Unfortunately, this happened, but you can learn from it. How do you navigate your way through a disagreement? You're going to have those kinds of issues throughout your entire life. It makes you wonder, how does Kenyon deal with his wife and his children? Is that a household where you got to walk on pins and nails, and not make a sound and agree with everything that Dad Kenyon or husband Kenyon says, or it could turn into a real issue? On the other hand, Nick Young, who doesn't take anything serious. So what is his relationship in his household with his significant other and his children? Is it all playtime? Is Nick Young teaching them anything about the real realities of life, how you handle negative situations and turn them into a positive? Everything about life is not a joke. So where do we go from here? It's going to be interesting on how Gilbert Arenas responds to this situation. Will he just sweep it under the rug and no comment? Will he remove one of them, probably Kenyon Martin, from the podcast? And this is not the first time where you've had athletes that have initiated a podcast as a group, and then one or two of them fall out for whatever reason. We got to see how this thing is going to play out. But it was an unfortunate circumstance that Kenyon Martin went off and got into a verbal altercation with Nick Young during last week's YouTube podcast on Gilbert Arenas' YouTube channel. It was an unfortunate circumstance. You got two multimillionaire ex-professional athletes behaving like kids. And I think Kenyon Martin was at the most fault in this particular situation. We got to handle chaos and disorder in a better way and manifest our truth in a positive light. Tell me what you think. This has been a Trevor Donald Experience.